Thank you for joining the Missing Half podcast, where we're discovering what's missing in manufacturing and B2B marketing. Today, my guest is Pete Huggins, the president of ITEN Industries. Pete, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Pete, we've been trying to set this up for a while. I've been really anticipating this time together. Let's start maybe at the beginning of ITEN Industries, and I'm going to congratulate you guys on 100 years.
Thank you.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that. I know your family has been the steward now of ITEN Industries for 3 generations and many, many years, and have had relationships with the business and your family throughout its history. But maybe just talk from a really broad perspective about the history of ITEN.
Okay, great. Charlie ITEN was the founder of ITEN Fiber, which was in 1923. Charlie was an immigrant from Switzerland, came to the United States, worked in a leather factory in Massachusetts, made his way to Spalding Fiber Company in Tonawanda, New York, and left Tonawanda, went to Cleveland in 1923 and started ITEN Fiber, which was basically a fabricator of vulcanized fiber. Vulcanized fiber was the plastic at that time. Bakelite hadn't come around, and vulcanized fiber is a variation on cellulose, cotton cellulose. Same type material as flax, turned into parchment paper, but they turned cotton into vulcanized fiber as opposed to flax being turned into parchment paper, which goes back to the Egyptians. That was sulfuric acid and flax reacted. Vulcanized fiber is zinc chloride acid reacted with cellulose fiber. Too much into the weeds. We'll get out of the weeds. Charlie left Cleveland in 1926, came to Ashtabula, and bought out what used to be the Pierce Tire and Rubber Company, which became the Ashtabula Tire and Rubber Company as a result of 5,000 miles to a tire in those days for cars. And then moved the fabricating operation a couple of years later, set up a manufacturing or material manufacturing from a standpoint of vulcanized fiber down in Plant 1, which is down the street from where we are currently. And then sold to the new burgeoning electrical industry. Lots of stuff in the Cleveland area, Akron, Canton, lots of things going on. And Dad went to work for Charlie in 1947 after World War II. Charlie passed away in 1957. Dad bought the company from Charlie's estate. And we really don't do anything now that we did then other than fabricate parts. We used to make vulcanized fiber. We were one of 7 fiber manufacturers in the country. At this point, there are no vulcanized fiber manufacturers in the country. The last one to get out of it was NVF, and then part of that Spalding Bud Company, Synthane, Taylor, and ITEN, I think is a total of them. We started making high-pressure laminates when Dad was working for Charlie's, which would have been early to mid-50s. We started doing injection molding back in the early 60s. We started making polyester fiberglass NEMA grade polyester sheets probably in the late 60s. We've been fabricating parts between punch parts and machine parts and injection molded since 1923 basically. Sorry, not injection molding. Didn't come along too much later. We do pultrusion, which is a continuous form of polyester ladder rails. All the colored ladder rails you see on all the utility vehicles, those are basically a form of pultrusions. Pultrusions are thermoset resins pultruded through a heated tool as opposed to extrusions, which are thermoplastic. They soften with heat. Extruded as in pushed through a tool where they're cooled. So vinyls and styrenes and polypropylenes and all those things are basically extrusions. Thermosets are epoxies, phenolics, melamines, silicones. Some are capable of doing pultrusions, those things that are not condensation reactions. Condensation reactions don't work well on pultrusions. I've got too many ums in the process here. Sorry about
No,
that.
you're doing well.
All right.
So, Pete, when you think about, you have that 60s and 70s, your dad took over. When did you come to the business? And did you start here as a young person after you went and studied engineering? What was your journey to get here?
My first job was picking up bricks at 13 or 14. We'd had a old boiler system. We tore down the stack and the boilers, and all the bricks were there. And so I put a patio in for my folks in their backyard out of bricks one summer. But basically, I started on simple jobs around here, someplace between 14 and 15, and worked through most of all the processes and departments that we had at the time. Went to Ohio University, majored in industrial technology, spent a little time with Uncle Sam, and basically have been here most of my life.
Great. And certainly congratulations. We have actually a couple of clients who have made it to 100 years and a couple who are knocking on the door. So I don't know what that says about us, but I know certainly what it says about you and those other organizations that you've reinvented yourselves. You have been through the ups and the downs, because there's no way that in 100 years there weren't peaks and valleys.
Right.
And my family's been in business since 1991, so we're on that new trajectory, and hopefully we'll see that continue up into 100 years with generations. But congratulations on that.
Thank you.
One of the themes here at ITEN Industries is Imagineering with plastics.
Right.
And I certainly think you guys, and as you've gone through some of the history, you've had to reimagine the business many times, and whether it's with technological innovation, people investment, raw material changes, and certainly there seems to be a renaissance here recently at ITEN. With everywhere I look, I see new machinery. I see new investments, whether it's 3D printing, whether it's punch parts machines. I took a tour earlier today, and around every corner, it seemed like there was a new upgraded machine. So maybe can you talk about how ITEN is preparing? Maybe can you talk about how ITEN is preparing for the next 100 years?
We're doing our best to stay ahead of the crowd, I guess. You're right. We have changed many times. Lots of product lines have come and gone. The fiber industry, basically 7 manufacturers, high-pressure laminate participants. Used to be 15 of them, as in General Electric all the way on down. At this point, there are no fiber manufacturers in the U.S. At this point, there's only 2, maybe 3, 2.5, whatever, high-pressure laminate manufacturers. We being one, and Norplex being the other one. Difference between us and Norplex is we're a vertically integrated parts maker, basically. On the same basis, we sell laminates and B-stage, pre-preg, which is the first step in the making a laminate, to lots of people. We would rather do the whole soup to nuts, if you want to call it that, because we get to be in control of the whole thing. We either solve our own problems or we don't have anybody to blame the problems on. It allows us to Imagineer, as we call it, different solutions, combine things differently than other people would, produce products that combination of a pultruded and an overmolded product that we did for a bedding application many years ago was wonderful. That whole process, as far as combining and doing new things, is the most interesting or the fun part. Part of the reason, I guess, we do that is because you have less competition,
Sure.
being able to solve problems that other people can't do. And one of the things that I enjoy the most is we can't find anybody to do this for us. It gives us an opportunity to really develop a great solution, save money in the long run for the customer and what they want to do, and provide something that gives us a unique opportunity to solve a problem for them, which gives them a unique opportunity to make a better product for their end customer and build a better relationship. So we get to look forward to the next opportunity.
Great. So one of the unique advantages that we've observed at ITEN Industries is your vertical integration, specifically when we talk about the laminates as a raw material, then your ability to engineer a solution, your ability to have the in-house tool and die to make the tool, and then the ability to, whether it's small lots or very large volume lots of punched parts, to really be able to execute at a level that competitors and other participants in the market can't, because they don't have vertical integration basically from raw material and idea or problem the whole way through to consistent quality of produced parts. Can you maybe talk about that vertical integration and how you see that setting ITEN apart in the industry?
Great question. The advantage, I guess, of being old and hanging around and seeing all these things and participating in each step and having interrelated departments. If we were purchasing laminates for an application, the laminate manufacturer wouldn't understand the punching situation. Or if they did, it would be cursory, not enough to be at an advantage. I guess the specific application, one of the specific applications is we supplied all the fluorescent light bulb insulators to GE, Osram, and Philips, as in we would ship in excess of 300 million pieces a month, which isn't a real feat. The real feat is that we supplied them to a ppm level of less than 100 parts defect per million. And when you're punching parts out of strips, you have defects as the beginning and the end of every strip. You have opportunities for misfeeds as a result of all the little things that happen along the way. And to get 100 parts per million defect means that much time that we screw up in a day's time of production, and we've exceeded the 100 million pieces. It's not possible to not screw up at least that much time during the day, but if you can identify and understand when you're screwed up, you can separate the parts. It's not possible, cost effective, it may be a better word, it's not cost effective to make parts and then realize that you need to go through and sort those parts, especially when, for sake of, at that time, they were 98 cents a thousand, which meant we had to go through treater, layup, laminating, pressing, trimming in the sheet manufacturing, and we had a process where we checked the sheet thickness to confirm that we were in correct thickness on the sheet, and then transfer it to the fabricating department, plant 2 here, and saw the strips, punch the parts, and if you added any more costs to that, you couldn't afford to do anything. So in the punching operation, we got to the point where we were able to understand when we were going to make a bad part, and we were able to then separate the bad part in midstream in production from the rest of the parts. So at the end of the day, we could keep track of knowing how many mishits, misfeeds, whatever you want to call them, that we had, and convert that to, if it was a 5-way tool or a 10-way tool or whatever, convert those number of hits to the number of bad parts that should have been produced based on that, check those bad parts at the end of the shift compared to the number of that we should have had, and say, this is how many, and here's 90% of those parts. So at the end of that, we could calculate what our assumed ppm level was going to be, knowing that everything else that was produced was a good part. So we designed tools that allowed us to eliminate pieces at the beginning and the ends of the strips that would be half pieces. And we then designed tools and systems that allowed us to identify that we were getting a misfeed, as in the progression wasn't going to allow you to get the material to the right place, so the second stage of the die was going to end up making a half piece or something of that nature. And then on top of that, we solved the thickness problems. Not solved, but we controlled the thickness in making a laminate. NEMA allows you basically plus or minus 10% on a thickness. Not too difficult to hold, except that if you're treating the resin content in the wrong approach, you can take up that full 10%. Well, the tolerance that was allowed to us for those high volume lighting insulators basically was about half a NEMA. So we would treat to a treated weight to assure that we had no variation between resin content and paper content. Wasn't the big issue. It was treated weight. The treated weight would allow us to lay up a sheet within a given weight limit, and hitting that given weight limit dead center in it, because we made adjustments in the treating process so that we came out with sheets that were basically less than half of NEMA thickness tolerance variation from sheet to sheet, and less than that within a given sheet. So we basically had no issues in the process of controlling thickness tolerances for those, allowing the fact also that when you punch a part, you're going to get about a thousandths lift up on the punching process. And then to confirm that, we checked each and every sheet with what we called a sheet checker to confirm that there wasn't one extra ply or one too few plies in it, so that we basically had two issues in all those 30 years of making parts where we shipped parts to a customer that were out of tolerance on sheet thickness. So our approach has always been it's easier to eliminate the process of making a bad part than it is to go try to find it afterwards. So we do everything we can in the tool design and the tool construction, so that basically we've done everything that can possibly be done to make the job as easy for the operator, to make good parts with the idea that they have an issue, they stop it, we fix the problem, and go on from there, as opposed to thinking we can sort quality into the parts after the fact.
Well, it certainly seems that culture you've built of problem solving and quality is evident in that process. Because if we start with one, we understand the customer's issue and needs, right? So we've identified that. Then we make sure we engineer a solution. We build a tool that is going to do the job the right way. And then controlling the raw material, the sheet that comes in, you're just removing variables. Because if you had NEMA grade sheets from a supplier come in and hit those tools that it was at 10%, I don't know what your rejection rate would have been, but it would have been consistently inconsistent and high.
Right. The problem with buying standard NEMA sheets from somebody else is they're only interested in getting it made to the NEMA spec and processing it. Same thing we would be doing if that's all we were doing.
Sure.
But in our process, we have the next step in the operation that we take the approach that it might cost us a little more time in the first step to be efficient, not efficient, but to make the quality better, so that in the next step we save more time. So overall, between the departments, if we didn't have the departments working together, or hopefully a reward system that causes people to want to work with their customer, or their supplier, no different than the relationship that we try to build with our customers and our suppliers. How can we make it easier for you? How can we do something to help you? And that way we both win. So we take that same approach internally, with the idea that layup may end up having to do a little bit more precise or take a little longer in the process. But when we get it over here to plant 2 for fabricating, all of a sudden this fabrication process where you have to worry about some thickness variable goes away.
Sure.
So we apply that to basically everything that we do.
The other thing I've seen that ITEN has made a commitment to is investing in more technology to accelerate the tool building process. And maybe talk about that, because certainly whenever you have a client who comes in with a problem and you guys engineer a solution, and then you need to build that prototype tool and that can then scale to production, historically, and for a lot of people, that could take 4, 6, 8 weeks to build that tool. We've heard that we're getting that tool building time cut down to about 2 weeks or less in some cases.
Right.
Maybe talk about that investment in making sure that as part of punch parts, you can deliver that custom tooling more quickly, so that if a client calls you with a problem, this isn't a 4 to 6 month journey. We can maybe cut this down to maybe 30 days in the best cases, maybe 45, which is significant, right? When we're talking about manufacturing, when we're talking about components, that's like clicking on the Amazon buy it now button and it shows up tomorrow. That would be an equivalent. So maybe talk a little bit about that investment in the tooling department and bringing those tools more rapidly to your customers so you can produce those punch parts.
Great. Well, let's go back in history, I guess. Back in the 60s, when I started working one of the summers in the tool room, to make a conventional end fiber die at that time was probably 240 to 300 hours worth of the tool maker's time. That was with the tools that were available, as in conventional standard old-fashioned machining, prior to EDM, electrical discharge machining. So we made an end fiber tool, which basically is like a wagon wheel, with a bunch of spokes sticking out of it that gets stuck on the end of an armature in a fractional horsepower, or large motor, but in a fractional horsepower motor, and the windings go around it, and the end fiber basically protects the varnish on the copper wire from being split or cut in the winding up against the steel laminate. So we'd spend 250 to 300 hours making a single end fiber, which was basically an OD with an ID, except that they were prongs. Technology wasn't available to do anything different. Then electrical discharge, or RAM, EDMing as would be referred to now, came along. We were one of the first people probably the first between Cleveland and Erie, but we were well ahead of our time as far as conventional EDMs. So you would basically machine an electrode and burn those shapes out of the electrode as opposed to trying to mill a square corner with a round end mill. Can't do that. Which brought the time to produce a conventional end fiber from 250 hours down to maybe 120 to 150 hours by that change and eliminating the old conventional way. And then after that, and that was probably in the 60s also that we purchased the first EDM, electrode EDM machine. And then probably in the mid-70s, I think we also were the first people in a couple hundred miles radius to buy a wire machine. A wire machine is like a jigsaw that instead of having a jigsaw blade going up and down, you got a little brass wire that's fed through, and the brass wire becomes the conductor. You put a charge to that, and the brass wire is eliminated, as in chewed up, in the process of sparking out, taking the electrical current and sparking away the steel, which eliminated the need to make an electrode, and it took that 120 to 150 hours down to about 60 to 70 hours, because you had a program that you wrote as opposed to having to do those other components. No real machining other than you'd heat treat the tool. You'd heat treat the tool or the steel before you had to cut it, which eliminated issues of grinding and secondary operations and all that sort of stuff. And at this point, we now basically take a hardened piece of steel, poke a hole in it, write a program, and the wire runs around. The wire clips itself off when it has to go from one hole to another hole. We just in the last week got a new state-of-the-art wire EDM that took our older wires, which we're now on we're on our fourth generation of wire EDMs here. And we've gone from 3 and 4 inches a minute to 7 inches a minute to this one is an hour. We're now at 14 inches an hour.
Wow.
And that tool that went from 250, give or take, hours down to 120 hours, down to 70 hours, is probably at this point, a single tool like that we could do and start making parts in probably 30, 40 hours.
Wow.
From here's the purchase order.
Sure.
To here's the tool ready to go on the press. When punching is slipped away a little bit compared to what it used to be. Punching was kind of the pre-molding operations, and molding eliminated some of the punch parts because there wasn't any other way to do it, and combined parts, but there's still a fair number of punch parts that exist. But in our heyday, as in when we had 2 wires going, we probably produced 2 dies every 2 or 3 weeks. We can produce them a lot faster now, but we aren't getting as much punch opportunities, or more molded opportunities are coming in to taking place of some of the punch part stuff.
Got it. But I think the key there is, for the available market that's out there, you guys can rapidly find a solution through your engineering. You can rapidly build the tool and scale production right away. So I'm sure that a buyer in that market, their concern is, okay, if I change suppliers, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of investment.
Yep.
Or if there's a new opportunity, how are we going to get this done? Well, the answer is quickly and accurately, and into a high quality production situation that we can consistently count on for our business.
Right.
So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, Pete, was when we think about the Punch Parts Initiative specifically, and we think about quality, because any buyer in the market is going to be, great. We can help you with your problem. We can engineer a solution. We can build the right tool quickly, cost effectively, and we can start to run that test batch and then scale production. Great. Quality is on everybody's mind, right? And well, two things, quality and then timeliness. And I know that in talking to a number of team members today and touring the plant, you could sense that everybody is committed to quality and everybody is committed to timeliness. So maybe talk about that culture here at ITEN of quality and timeliness.
It doesn't do any good to make a bad part and have to make it over again if you don't have time to do it right the first time. So our approach has been forever to optimize the process as far as our ability to make a good part. Don't take shortcuts on tooling. Don't expect the operator to be responsible for quality. The tooling and the process and the setup needs to be right. And if it isn't, the operator needs to say, this isn't it, and get a hold of the setup guy and make the problem go away. On the same basis, we build tools internally because we know we're going to run them, as opposed to buying tools outside, which at that point, if it comes to us, doesn't work, goes back to the tool house, they get paid a second time.
Sure.
Or to fix it or have the other issues. And anything that we don't do right, it comes out of our pocket. We have to fix it one way or another. It either slows down production, it adds costs because we didn't make it, and we got to look for the quality issues. The customer gets upset because we sent them bad parts, which we hardly ever do. And when we make a mistake, which we do, but when we make a mistake, it's not a dimensional situation. It's not a quality, as in what I refer to quality. Well, you missed it by a half a thousandths, or you missed it by 2 thousandths. Oh, we shipped the wrong part. I mean, it's a gross error that you don't really need to have a quality system to take care of it. And the more, again, my objective, it doesn't work all the time, but my objective is the more quality we can build into the tool, the more safe we can make the production process, the less quality time we have to put in the way of QC that adds value, but only for preventing making bad parts. If you're not making bad parts to start with, then the quality exercise, which again is necessary, we have statistical process control that we do in part or in process checking on to assure that as the tool is wearing, as the die edges start going off, that we check. And again, we didn't make 300 million pieces a month and hold half thousandths tolerances basically on ID holes and thicknesses and all that stuff by not having control over our processes. So we took the same things that we learned there and we've applied them to all the other stuff so that it gets us return. It gets us benefits.
No, that's great. And I think that's something where obviously, and this is something I want to get into in a minute. I mean, you guys are investing in a lot of new machinery, a lot of new equipment. Everywhere I toured today, there was something new around every corner, which was awesome to see. But we can have new machines, we can have new ideas, we can have new thoughts, but if we're not basing those on the lessons we've learned for a long time, and I see a lot of companies that we have access to or that we're talk to that don't have that legacy or that institutional memory, and they struggle because they're going to make a lot of the same mistakes that you guys made decades ago, and you guys can hopefully skip those ones and make new ones, right? That's the journey.
Right.
But I think when you hear about companies that have done something at that high volume consistently over time, there's an institutional memory, there's learning from that, and there's a culture that comes and becomes part of that company to do quality work consistently over time. And certainly being in your 103rd year, you guys have had consistency because that's a long time. So Pete, as we've toured around today and looked in a number of the buildings, it seemed like everywhere I turned, there was a fresh coat of paint. There was a new machine. So with any company that's 100 years old, you have stuff from the past, right? Every company does. But there was a fresh coat of paint on equipment in new areas. And when I say that, I'm talking about newer machinery, investment that ITEN's made. What are you and your leadership team doing to prepare ITEN for the next 100 years?
Trying to keep up with technology, trying to make sure that we have the ability to produce quality parts that get to the customer. And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have customers having issues with this, so they never come out to visit. So we don't get the opportunity, I guess, to show them what we're capable of doing. And more often, not more often, always, the expression is when a customer comes to visit, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you do that also? And yeah, we can help with a whole bunch of things that if you had reason to come and visit more often, but if you don't have quality issues, nobody comes and gives you a hard time. So it's whatever, you're caught in a good place, I guess,
yes,
as far as that goes. But yeah, we've spent a lot of money on molding equipment, new wire EDM. We got a new saw that's supposed to have been here already from Germany. We're still waiting. We added 3 new mills just within the last 6 months, I guess, something like that. We have some new business that's going to require us to increase in the pultrusion department, add another piece of equipment that we will build in-house. We've built 3 of the last 4 machines in-house. We have some more opportunities along those lines. Machining has got reason to get another mill with the added business that we've got. Our CNC punch press, we were fortunate to find one that was rebuilt about a year ago that we couldn't afford not to bring in and have additional capacity and backup for what we've got going. So it's been a nice situation lately.
You also have, we're sitting here in the 3D printing room,
yeah,
right, by this behemoth. So for Christmas, I bought one of my sons a little 3D printer, and I told him today I was going to go see one that's almost as big as our car. So I have to take a snapshot of that with my phone and send it to him later, but he was all excited to hear about that. But no, you guys are certainly investing in the next 100 years and really accelerating your Imagineering and your innovation. And that's exciting to hear. As we've talked to people throughout the facility, you can sense the excitement. You can sense that they are believing in the momentum you're creating. So just want to congratulate you guys on really doing those things and making those next moves. And also, I think, so we're from a local county in Indiana that's kind of out of the way, right? Outside of Pittsburgh. You guys are outside of Cleveland here. Ashtabula is not the heart of anything. So I'm sure that this
wine country.
Wine country, there you go. But some of the folks that we talked to this morning were really appreciative of the commitment to Ashtabula County and the local economy and making sure there were good manufacturing jobs that stayed here in the local market. So that's also a great thing that you and your family have done. I think that you should be commended for.
Thank you. We do our best. We keep trying. We've got a lot of people here that have got 30 years plus of tenure, and some old timers that have retired in the last couple of years, and we've probably lost 150, 200 years of experience in that process, but it is what it is.
That's right. Yeah, times keep rolling on, and we have to roll with the times.
Yep.
One of the themes of ITEN is, and kind of a catchphrase, if you have it, is providing components for life's challenges. And I think one of the things I've appreciated in looking at a lot of specifically the punch parts and some of the other manufacturing processes you have on the property is that your team doesn't really make something that someone would recognize at a store or at a facility. You're making components that are added to, assembled onto, or combined with other things to make everybody's lives easier, right? Which is where this tagline of providing components for life's challenges. When you think about the industries you guys service, so you certainly do a lot of work in the electrical insulation and not consumer insulation per se, but in the fractional horsepower motors, in switch boxes, in a lot of the components that kind of help these new digital centers and all of the power and energy that go into those, railroads, electric rail assemblies, healthcare products, and a lot of the electrical insulation and products there, as well as in many, many other areas.
Right.
one of the things that I think we need to recognize as a society today is that there are jobs and companies that are providing support for a great life we live here in the United States. And certainly ITEN is doing its part to provide those components, and you never get the press, because the shiny car doesn't come off the line, right?
Right.
We don't have that big aha moment. So I sensed a pride amongst the team today of talking about that.
Great.
But maybe if you could add a little bit about 100 years at ITEN and providing those components and being willing to do maybe that unheralded, that unseen and unrecognized work, but it's so important to our lives today.
We do a lot of stuff that gets hidden, and we contribute to a lot of different, pieces of equipment or appliances or whatever. And back in the ancient days, we were the world's largest manufacturer of vacuum cleaner crevice tools before the advent of injection molding and flashlight barrels. We supplied flashlight barrels, basically wound tubes that we knurled and painted and sold to the people making flashlights in the country, all of them. And the vacuum cleaners manufacturers, the same situation. And molding came along, and Charlie didn't want to get into injection molding at that point. And Dad tried to convince him we ought to. We ended up losing all that business. Had we been able to get an injection molding machine at that time, be kind of in the first, that business would have all stayed with us. Back to reinventing yourself, as you mentioned earlier. But we have lots of opportunities to participate with lots of stuff as the world has changed, and those things that used to be made in this country, as in blenders and vacuum cleaners and everything that associated with that, went to China. We lost the business as a result of, not by default, basically. It wasn't anything we could do about it. At this point, they bring over a finished vacuum cleaner with the motors in it made in China or Japan or wherever it happened to be at that time. And we lost the ability to sell the fractional horsepower motors. And things change, as in the auto industry used to be all electromechanical devices as opposed to printed circuit boards, which then became integrated circuits. And so that whole technology change has happened along the way. But all the auto repair companies in the country were buying parts for us for all those electromechanical devices. So that's all changed. But at some point along the line, I guarantee everybody in the United States comes in contact with something that has an ITEN part in it somewhere or another, someplace along the line. Again, things are changing. We're kind of moved into bigger parts because the appliance industries have left as such. But the circuit breakers you were talking about for the big power distribution facilities, that's become a very nice addition to our ability. We do some pultrusion of some pretty sophisticated parts and then do a fair amount of machining to them afterwards. And they are being, with the electrification of the country, more so than what it has been, business is up as a result of all that. And we can do a wonderful job as far as never had any quality issues with any of those parts. They've been in service for 25 years now, I guess, as a new generation. And we just added some more capacity to end up basically doubling the sales on those things. So as the times change, we end up trying to stay tuned to the market. And if a customer asks us to help with some new project where we realize you need to stay current or you're going to not exist.
Absolutely. Well, I think, any company that's lasted as long as yours has 103 years, you have to reimagine yourself. And markets change, times change, and you guys have done a great job of changing those things. So one of the reasons why we're working with you and your team is we're also having to reimagine the marketing and sales function. So, maybe we could talk about that a little bit. Your prior go-to-market strategy was largely through sales team, didn't lean heavily on marketing. And we're starting to see that change because of, the younger buyer. COVID certainly impacted that with travel, the polish the doorknob, the send the old school sales team out, and that relationship
Right.
That is transitioning to more online information, content, people seeking answers online before they ever contact a company or a sales team. And also the cost differential of launching a huge sales force to canvas is significantly higher and not as scalable as digital marketing and having those outreach tools. So maybe let's talk a little bit about, what you felt was missing in your marketing and why we're kind of going on this journey of developing a more modern approach to B2B marketing and sales to help you introduce these new opportunities and grow them in the market.
Right. Well, I keep saying it, but back in the old days, things were different. Things changed. The technology wasn't available. Thomas Register was the way people found people at that point, or found companies at that point, or by word of mouth as a result of somebody being associated, moving, whether within an industry or a company or something else, and taking their experiences and the people they knew with them. And if they remembered that we had the ability to solve a problem for them, we'd get a phone call. And so we were found as a result of, not like today, doing the same thing, but they're just doing it differently. We were found as a result of people having the information to do that because of some past experience or some understanding of where to get the knowledge, Thomas Register. Or we would have salespeople that would be prospecting or dealing with existing customers that were buying something from us, and they had other opportunities, and because of our versatility in regards to being able to supply parts, we just didn't sell apples, and if you don't want an apple, you got nothing to buy from us. So we had sales guys that were making calls on existing customers, and along the way do some prospecting and knocking on other doors, and it would come back with opportunities once in a while. Nowadays, nobody wants to see a sales guy or a sales lady. And at this point, to go knocking on doors is kind of an expensive process. The observations I've, grown to understand at this point is that the new generation, thank goodness for them, wants to do it with their phone, do it with the web. Those tools are phenomenal. The information that's available to you in less time than you can do it otherwise. And your approach, our approach as a result of your help and effort, is to make ourselves available to those people that are looking for something that can find us easier than us hoping to find them by knocking on the doors. And so the end objective from my standpoint is we need to create something that is easy for people to, purchasing people, engineers, to find us, our capabilities, to realize that we are more than a viable supplier and that we can solve their problems. And the other, approach, the other worry on my part is we basically engineer solutions. We're not one-offs and just keep making it. Everything we do is unique to a given customer for a given application. I know we don't have two parts that we make that get sold to two different people, two different companies. We may have laminate materials that get used by multiples, but everything is a unique part, and every part is designed specifically for their application. What is most beneficial from our standpoint is if we get to talk to the engineers that are designing it, and if you thought about this or did this, we could save you a bunch of this, would make life easier, and we can cut 80% of the cost of reworking it or redoing it by doing it right the first time, by not having to come back. And if we'd known to start with, we would have done it this way. We have enough experiences that we can know where the shortcuts are, know how we can do something better, and offer a solution to whatever extent is necessary, whether it be printing prototypes or machining or punching. And at this point, it's easy for us to make a punch tool, and it's inexpensive in relationship to what things used to be. So there's all these things that we can offer, but if the product is already designed and somebody's already purchased it before we've had a chance to participate, not a problem, other than it's nice to get in on the ground floor and help solve some of these problems. So the new way of doing it is to basically get yourself easily found by everybody that might be looking, as opposed to thinking that you can go out there and talk to everybody that might not be looking and hit on one or two that are looking, as opposed to being able to swamp the market, I guess, or swamp the market so that they're available to find you. And we need to make it easy for them to get their solution, which is the approach on this Punch Part initiative, that we have got in place enough past experiences, knowledges, tooling capabilities, engineering abilities, and support to do this basically almost in our sleep, and to do it more efficiently than I think anybody else out there, and and no question as far as quality goes, and speed of delivery is not a problem. We can resolve whatever is necessary on that. So the effort or the difficulty from my standpoint is, now that we have these capabilities to go out and knock on enough doors to find enough people to give us enough opportunities when they aren't interested anyway at that point, or to find the ones that are interested and want to do something now, we need to have your help in making that all happen. Or without it, we've got capabilities that are just going to sit and not get to where we really want them to end up being.
So we take that same approach that you have in the manufacturing facility to marketing. We're looking to find opportunities that we can design processes and tools around something that we can scale up and mass produce, right? So it's very similar. And I think, Pete, you're exactly right. We have to think about the 95-5 rule. If you have a total addressable market, a target market that could buy from you, on average, only 5% of those are buying today. The other 95 are not in need, not in market, don't have an issue, current suppliers doing fine, or haven't developed that need. So when we think about that 5%, we want to try and activate them to recognize you as an authority, that you can solve their problem, that you can provide, you have authority in the space and you can solve that issue. When we look at the 95 though, we can still message to them, because we don't know which one's which, right? We can still message them with our brand and our brand promise and our solutions and who we are, what we do, why we do it, who we do it for, and those type of things, so that whenever they move into that purchasing situation, into that 5%, they're ready with you on their short list. So like, oh yeah, I've been watching ITEN, been listening to their stuff, aware of their situation. I think they could be helpful to me. So yeah, I think we're on that right journey. We're very early in that journey, but we're excited about what we're seeing and what we're developing together. So it'll be interesting to, you and I won't be here for the 200 year, but hopefully they'll look back and think fondly of this partnership in helping you guys grow. Pete, another thing, switching gears a little bit, we talked to a number of people today, and this word came, we asked this question: what does ITEN mean to you? And you're probably sitting here like, whoa, this could go the wrong way really quickly, right? Pete, you and I have been around a long time.
Did we pick the right people?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you paid them enough right now. Right. But, having been in a family business all my life, I mean, I started as a janitor in my dad's office building as a young person and went to constructions crews and all the way up through. Right. And you've been here for a long time and multiple generations. You ask those questions and sometimes you wonder what's going to come out. But I think you'll be pleased that the consistent word that we heard was family.
Good.
That's what we heard.
Great.
And I just want to commend you and your family and the ownership and leadership group. The culture that we're hearing about and that people believe in is one of family, that they can count on each other. And then I was asking some follow-up questions and we were talking about it, and they also were leaning towards clients, family and clients. That's kind of the two takeaways I had. And it was, we have to deliver for the client, the customer. We have to. So internally, they're focused on the family aspect, but they also recognize that they got to produce something and keep the clients happy so we can keep this family afloat, right?
Good. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was very happy to hear that. As a fellow business owner, you're always wondering what type of culture you're actually executing and delivering on. We all aspire to heights, but how are we reaching those? But I just want to commend you on that. I think that was kind of a Easter egg that we opened up and found an amazing piece of candy. Or maybe, I guess today with inflation, the kids want a $20 bill on their Easter egg to make it impactful. But I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
So Pete, as we're looking to wrap this conversation up, I'd like to ask you about a little perspective on the first 100 years. Not that you've been here for all of them, right? But you've been here for a big part of them, and certainly with your dad's history, you guys covered a good swath of the ITEN history. And as you're looking towards the future, you're investing in a lot of machinery, facilities. You're investing in people. I tour a lot of facilities, and I can tell when I walk in a building if I can feel that. I don't know what it is. There's emotion, there's an energy, there's a way people behave, and you can feel it here at ITEN Industries. Maybe talk a little bit about how you see the way you're positioning the company for the next 100 years around people, innovation, the culture, and making sure you're delivering for your clients.
Well, customers, number one, because without the customer, nope, none of us have anything. So we need to focus on it. Our quality policy is understanding and achieving my customers' expectations. And that's internal, as in within departments, whether you're my customer or vice versa, which we're all each other's customers and suppliers. So we try to hopefully get that instilled in everybody. New people need to get adapted, I guess, is the right way of putting it. As far as, again, business opportunities, we're trying to stay ahead with technology. We got a inspection machine for part inspection, which allows us to do what would take 15 or 20 hours per part in about 5 minutes once you've got the original program written. Again, with the idea on some of the molded parts that we're doing that we need to be able to supply dimensional layouts for each and every one of those at PPAP levels on 200 or 300 parts. So it's been a nice addition from that standpoint. Hopefully it lets us apply some of that to some of the other things we're doing. Trying to develop some new products. We are processes as well. We have a new process that we just came up with that should allow us to do some pultrusions that nobody else is doing, allow us to do some structural systems. We would like to. It's always been my objective to develop a commodity type item that instead of everything being unique to a customer, we have a commodity that we can sell to multiple people, compete against the other people that are maybe making the same things, and have multiple customers buying the same item from us just to kind of help with leveling things out. Sometimes we're busier than I'll get out with new projects, and other times there's dry spells.
Sure.
And the same thing goes with commodities, but I guess my assumption is that we should be able to hopefully balance those things out a little bit. We got a lot of space in the 4 buildings that we own here in Ashtabula. We've got lots of time as far as multiple shifts go. It would be nice to get those filled up. We need to find those people that are interested in doing those things. Sometimes it's easier than other times.
Sure.
We try to do as best we can as far as bringing in and training. We were real happy to have people that want to advance. Again, we got entry-level jobs that you can come in off the street for, all the way up to tool makers, engineers, the lab facility for testing and development of materials and all that sort of stuff, and CNC printing, not printing, excuse me, but programming. If I had to pick a number, we've probably got 100 CNC type machines of one type or another, between punch presses and machines for machining of parts and injection molding and all the controls at this point. The controls are unbelievable as far as what you can do on an injection molding machine today versus what you used to be able to do. And the fact you can kind of see what happens real time by looking at the graphs and understanding absolutely what is going on inside that barrel and inside the machine, and get to the point where you can tweak the machine so they're putting in less than a half of a cubic centimeter into a cavity to balance the whole thing out. So, and new tools as far as we're doing the same thing. We've got SolidWorks, which we've had for probably 15 or 20 years.
Your family is also making an additional investment here in Ashtabula County with the hotel, which we're set to open sometime here in July. And I know there's been a journey, as all entrepreneurial processes are, but very excited to stay in the new hotel, which is going to be this is July. So hopefully end of July 2024, that'll be open.
Should be, right.
And excited about that investment and opportunity. I know, speaking to some locals here, we stayed in the area last night. There's some chatter about that. Everybody's excited. So I think that's another great contribution you guys are making to the local community.
We have been here all our lives, as in my father and his father grew up in Youngstown, moved to Ashtabula, and my grandmother came over from Sweden with her rest of the family. So we're four generations, 5 generations, what it ends up being in Ashtabula. We have done our best to contribute to the community from the standpoint of Kent State. When our father passed away, we made a contribution in his name. The family decided to make a contribution in his name for all the things that he's done. And this opportunity came along as a result of former Ashtabula, it's a guy that moved away, did very well, and another Ashtabula friend that's been here all his life. And the three of us decided it was probably a good thing to do to support the community. And it will be. It's still in process.
Sure, as these projects always are.
Right.
And it'll be good to be there in the opening and look back and reflect and hopefully forget about construction and all the hurdles you have to go through.
Right.
Well, Pete, this has been just a great conversation. I think ITEN is positioned well for the next 100 years because of your commitment and your family's commitment to investing in people, investing in machinery and innovation. And I think you guys are set for Imagineering with plastics for the next 100 years.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us today.
Great.
And we really appreciate it.
Thank you.